Assalamu alaikum, grade 9. Today we're going to continue our chapter about the transport and distribution of nutrients and oxygen to organs. So we're still working on activity 1, heart and the cardiac activity. So this is page 56 and 57 in your book. Today's objectives are to identify the cardiac cycle and identify what an ECG or an EKG is. So today we're going to start talking about the cardiac cycle. The cardiac cycle is actually composed of 3 different phases. We're going to start talking about phase 1. It's known as auricular systole or auricular systole. What systole means, or systole means contraction. So we're talking about the contraction of the auricles. So here we have the heart. We have blood being present inside the auricles. What happens is that the auricles, they start to contract, so to push on themselves, forcing the blood to pass from the auricles to the tricuspid and bicuspid valves. So tricuspid valves are on the right side, bicuspid valves are on the left side. So these valves are open, and when the auricles contract, they push the blood from the auricles into the ventricles. Now, during this phase, what happens is that the sigmoid valves are actually closed. So when the tricuspid and bicuspid valves are open, usually the sigmoid valves are closed. This is known as auricular systole. The duration of this cycle is, or this phase is 0.1 seconds. So the duration is 0.1 seconds. Now we're going to talk about phase 2. Phase 2 is known as ventricular systole or ventricular systole. So again, remember, systole means contraction, and now we're talking about the contraction of the ventricles. So remember, during the last phase, what happened is that the blood, it moved from the auricles into the ventricles. So the first thing that actually happens here is that the tricuspid and bicuspid valves close. Okay, so the tricuspid and bicuspid valves close. This prevents the backflow of the blood from the ventricles into the auricles. So remember, blood only moves in one direction in the heart. So here, these valves, they prevent the backflow of blood into the auricles. So now we have the sigmoid valves open. And what happens is that we need them to be open because the ventricles are going to contract. And what happens is that the blood will be pushed from the ventricles through the sigmoid valves into the pulmonary artery and the aorta. So the pulmonary artery will carry the blood to the lungs, and the aorta will carry the oxygenated blood to the rest of the body. The duration of this phase is 0.3 seconds, and this is known as ventricular systole. So this is the contraction of the ventricles. The final phase of the cardiac cycle is known as general diastole or general diastole. What happens is that here, diastole or diastole means the relaxation of the heart. So we don't have any contraction. So what's usually happening during this phase is that the heart is actually relaxed and the blood is flowing through it slowly. So we have the tricuspid and bicuspid valves open and the sigmoid valves are closed. So what happens is that the veins bring back the blood into the heart, and so veins like the superior and inferior vena cava and the pulmonary veins, they bring back the blood into the heart. They then fill the auricles slowly with the tricuspid and bicuspid valves open, and then they travel slowly, or the blood travels slowly into the ventricles. Remember, here we don't have any contraction. Usually this phase lasts for 0.4 seconds. This is the duration of this phase. So general diastole means the relaxation of the heart. We have no contraction of the heart. We have the blood slowly flowing back into the heart through the veins known as superior, inferior vena cava, and pulmonary veins. They're flowing into the auricles through the tricuspid and bicuspid valves into the ventricles, while the sigmoid valves are closed. So these are the stages, three main stages of the cardiac cycle. Remember, it's a cycle because it repeats again and again. Now what we're going to talk about, electrocardiography. How do I know that the heart is actually functioning properly? How do I know that the cardiac cycle is actually functioning properly with the correct duration happening? So electrocardiography is actually a medical examination that provides information about the function of the heart. So an electrocardiograph provides the record of the electrical activity of the heart caused by the electrical cycle, by the cardiac cycle. So here what you can see is that you can see a set of waves. So the first one being the P, Q, R, S, T, and we have a rest period. So the P wave is actually auricular systole and usually has a duration of 0.1 seconds. Then you have Q, R, S, T. All of this from here to here, this is ventricular systole. Okay, this has a duration of 0.3 seconds. And finally, we have general diastole, which is the rest stage, being equivalent to 0.4 seconds. Any change in the duration or in the size of these waves indicates that there's something wrong with the heart. So there's something wrong with the electrical impulses happening in the heart. So we can detect if the heart is functioning normally or if there is a problem with the heart. Thank you for listening. See you again in another video. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.